Today we're talking about pin enablement. That is, giving a nice pin to someone in your life who's not already a pin person. And maybe you're pinabling yourself, which is also a generous and kind gesture. There are a lot of fountain pens out there, and they seem expensive, especially when you compare them to a ballpoint, which costs less than a dime. A dime. What costs a dime these days? Today, limes were on sale at Lottie for 20 cents each, and I had to get my elbows out to fight my way to the bin. And if that's too much, many businesses will give you a pin for free with their contact info on it, just in case you need an accountant, an oil change, or a colonoscopy in the future. So it's not the ability to make marks on paper that you're giving when you give someone a fountain pen. What you're giving them is an experience. And so picking the right pen starts with asking, what experience are you trying to give? The most straightforward fountain pen is the Pilot Varsity. It gives you the experience of writing with a fountain pen with the least amount of friction possible. You get it out of the package, uncap it, and just start writing. It comes pre-filled with ink. It's a literally disposable commodity pen like the Bic, but a fountain pen rather than a ballpoint. The ownership experience is similar as well. Buy it, write with it until it's empty, and then toss it in the recycle bin. Once it's empty, you can't refill it. I suppose you can, no one's going to stop you, but they don't make it easy. And here's something hobbyists don't always like to admit. The Pilot Varsity is a pretty good fountain pen. You can spend a lot more money, and the experience of writing doesn't get better as quickly as the price goes up. In other words, a pen that costs twice as much as the Varsity doesn't write twice as good, nor does one that costs 100 times more. When you spend more, you get a somewhat better writing experience, but mainly what you're paying for are better aesthetics and more options. Maybe you're trying to gift the experience of something neat or quirky. There are a ton of options here, and what speaks to the recipient is going to vary from person to person. I've picked out a few to talk about, and I'll link to some other options. The first, coming in at just under $4 is the Jinhao Shark Pen, basically the same price as the Pilot Varsity. I have a pale blue one here, but there are numerous fun colors. This pen doesn't come with any ink, so you'll need to include either a bottle of ink or some cartridges if you're gifting it. I'll talk about that at the end of this video. A little quirk I'll point out, this pen includes a converter, which lets you use bottled ink, but the price of just a converter purchased separately is more than this pen and converter included. The grip section has indentations that guide your index and thumb into the correct position for writing, which is good for someone new to fountain pens. The nib is an unusual hooded style. Spoiler alert, even though I say it's unusual, it's not the only hooded nib in this video. I only saw it available in a single width, labeled fine, sometimes labeled extra fine, and you'll see in the writing sample how it compares to the Varsity and some of the other pens I purchased here. Next in the quirky category is the Platinum Preppy, which can be had for $6, though I sprang for the slightly more expensive limited edition called the Uro Komon for $7.80. It includes an ink cartridge, but no converter. Platinum has its own proprietary cartridge, so there's not a large selection of colors available, though the excellent Carbon Black is one of the cartridges that you can purchase for this pen. If you want to use bottled ink and unlock all the colors and properties therein, you'll need to purchase a platinum converter, and those run about $11. Yes, nearly twice the price of the pen itself. This pen is a little shorter and thicker than the Shark pen, though the grip feels to be of a similar thickness. It's available in only a single nib width that I could find, a fine. Here we have the Coveco Sport, which costs around $25, a pretty big jump in price from our previous pens. This is the Iridescent Pearl Special Edition, which is this cool, slightly transparent color. The plastic is a slightly softer to the touch plastic than the previous two pens. It's hard to describe. It's not squishy, but it does feel softer in the hand. This category of small pen is called a pocket pen. When the cap is on, when it's capped, it's very small, but once you take the cap off and post it on the back of the pen, it's much closer to a full-sized pen. It comes with a cartridge, but smaller than those used in the other pens I've mentioned so far. This is the first pen in this list where you can get multiple nib sizes. This lets you select how thick you want the line to be. Most people new to the hobby like a fine, since that looks more like what they're used to with modern ball pens. I did when I started, but as I spent more time with the hobby, I've gravitated towards wider nibs so as to more clearly see the properties of the ink I'm putting on the paper. I'm not alone in this trend, though it's by no means universal. Some people have used pens for years or decades and still like a fine nib. This pen is special and quirky because of its unique silhouette and for the variety of colors and materials you can find it in. This particular one is plastic, but they offer them in the same shape in like brass and copper and steel and all sorts of different materials. Though the metal ones do get pretty expensive. There are two pens that I didn't purchase for this video, but that I want to show. First is the Jinhao Dragon, which is the most unique pen you'll find for $30. It's a heavy metal-bodied pen cast with a dragon on the side and inlaid with stones. It's anything but subtle, but it captures the weirdness and fun of the hobby at a relatively low price point. And the last quirky pen is actually a whole line of pens, the Benu Briolette. These are a big jump up in price to $100, but that extra budget lets them get more creative with the materials. And Benu leads the pack with how far they push their materials and colorways. Writing for long periods can be painful. This is not a new modern phenomenon. Medieval monks complained about it in the margins of books they were copying out hundreds, if not thousands, of years ago. Most ball pens and pencils have an ergonomic option that typically has a larger grip, often with a soft material. I have a few myself. Fountain pens have the potential to be more ergonomic than ball pens or pencils because they write with so little pressure and with such little friction. A nice pen glides over the paper with close to no effort, and for extended writing sessions, they're significantly more comfortable for just about everyone. But if you have additional pain in your hands, a larger grip section is generally better than a smaller one. Here I'll show two different pens with larger grip sections, and the first is another Jinhao. This is the X159. It's a large pen with a simple shape and design that, let's say, is inspired by an iconic and much more expensive pen with 149 in the name. The grip is large and comfortable to hold, and that's really the main thing going for it. Like many of the previous pens, it comes with some limitations. Colorways are pretty limited, and it's available in only one nib size, a fine. It comes with a converter, but no ink cartridges, so you'll need to gift some ink. At around $13 US, this pen has a lot going for it for the price. This is a Pelikan Twist, retailing between $15 and $20. Pelikan offers this interesting pen in a variety of colors, some of them quite bright. I have this color shifting purple and green one in a colorway called Shine Mystic. The grip of this pen is generously sized, and it is also triangular, so it helps keep the pen in a good position for writing. It's available in two nib sizes that I see, medium and fine, so a bit of variation. It comes with ink cartridges, and they're the standard international long size. So if you want to stick with cartridges, you can. There are plenty of colors available in standard international. Pelican also offers its own converter if you want to use bottled ink, but it is not included. Finding a soft and large grip like the ergonomic ball pins isn't easy these days, though some pins like the Pelican Twist do have a soft touch material. But in the early 2000s, a brand called Sensa had a very soft ergonomic grip it used on ballpoints, roller balls, pencils, and even a fountain pen called the Meridian. I was a fan and ended up buying a bit of everything. The company went out of business or shut down in 2007, only to come back in 2020. They started producing ballpoints again, but I've yet to see a new fountain pen come around. You can get these vintage pens on eBay, but they go for a relative premium, somewhere around $200. I think they're worth it, but I've got a soft spot for them since the black and silver one was one of my very first fountain pens. If you want to introduce someone to the hobby itself, my number one recommendation for a first fountain pen is the Lamy Safari. Not only because it's a robust and reliable pen, but also because it's an excellent introduction to all the uniqueness and self expression that makes this hobby fun. First, the pen is available in many different colors, from subdued, like this olive drab, and classy, like a nice matte black, all the way to the electric and vibrant. I've got one that looks like it came right from a highlighter. So any person will likely find at least one color that speaks to them, and Lamy also produces special edition colors each year. The Safari comes in just about every nib size, from extra fine nibs through medium into broad and double broad. You can get oblique nibs, which are meant to make it easier to write with your hand tilted, and they have calligraphy nibs, often called stubs, that go up to 1.9 millimeters thick. You saw it on the green pen I had a minute ago. That's closer to a highlighter than a regular pen. You can also buy the nibs separately for less than the price of a whole pen, so you can collect multiple sizes and easily swap them out and personalize your writing experience. You can see me doing that here. The nib just pulls right off the feed, and all you need to do is go find another donor pen or pull a spare out of your bin, slide the old one off, and slide it back onto this pen, and you are good to go. The whole feed also easily comes out of the ergonomic grip of the Lamy, making this a very easy pen to clean as well, so you don't need to be concerned about using an ink that is pigmented or has shimmer. You can also put in a gold nib if you want to. Lamy offers gold nib replacements, so you can do that. However, they are much, much more expensive than a single pin. I want to say the nib is something along the lines of $130 alone, not even on the pin. Lamy uses a proprietary ink cartridge. A blue one is included with each Safari, uh, but they do have some interesting colors available, though it's not super extensive. Converters are available, and I would highly recommend getting one, since if your goal is to introduce someone to the hobby, ink is a big part of that. If you have the means and want to give someone something extra special, I have some recommendations. At a little over $200, the Lamy 2000 is a classy, understated, and excellent writer. It's available in multiple nib sizes, all gold. While the nibs are interchangeable between Lamy 2000s, they are not compatible with the Lamy Safari nibs. This pen is also a piston filler, the first one on this list. Think of it like a converter that's built into the pen, or maybe a big goofy looking converter that they stuck a nib on. Like a converter, you'll need to provide bottled ink. Now, Montblanc is the name most people commonly associate with fountain pens. If you're looking to commemorate a big life event like a graduation, A pen from Montblanc is a good choice. You're gifting not only a good writing instrument, but also the brand recognition. This is a Montblanc 146, sometimes called Le Grand. It's a cigar-shaped pen with a beautiful solid gold nib. This is what I'd recommend as a top-tier gift for those who can afford to give it. It's a refined and elegant pen and recognizable without being ostentatious. There's a larger size, the 149, that I don't own, by the way. I hinted at it earlier as an inspiration for the Jinhao 159, but the 149 is too big for most people to carry around. As a bonus, compared to the 149, the 146 comes in more special editions. The pen you see here is a limited edition in white lacquer from 2018. That's arguably the highlight of my entire collection. My final recommendation is the Star Walker from Montblanc. It's smaller than the 146, but still an iconic Montblanc design. There is some seasonal variation. This one is the Blue Planet edition with that blue dome, but these are the least expensive pens from Montblanc. Finally, you'll need to provide ink if you want the person to be able to write. Most of the pens I've mentioned above will take a cartridge. You just need to make sure that you select the appropriate one for the pen. The only pens I've shown that can't take a cartridge and therefore require bottled ink are the Lamy 2000 and the Montblanc 146. If a pen will take a cartridge, it will also take a converter, which means that they can work with bottled ink, and that's really where all the variety is. As far as recommending a reliable, trouble-free ink, if I had to pick a favorite, it would be the Pilot Iroshizuku line. They have a large selection of unique colors and are universally trouble-free and easy to clean. If you want a water-resistant ink, you can't go wrong with a Platinum Carbon Black. Once dry, it's extremely water-resistant to the point where you can use it with watercolor paints. Though if you don't use your pen for a long time and let the ink dry up inside, it can be some more work to clean it out. I recently made a video on paper, so I'll put a link to it after this video fades to black, but this Kokuyo Campus is my favorite for everyday use. Thank you to my dog Luna for her support during the filming of this video, and thank you for watching.